Okay, number 14, we need to round each number to the place listed. Now, the first thing that I want to point out, and in the past, the issue is, where kids have struggled is we are taking this start number, 6 and 145 thousandths, and we need to round that number to the hundredths. Then we need to round that same number, the start number, to the nearest tenth, and then we are rounding that same number, that start number, to the nearest whole number. I know this is a little different than we've experienced, but it shouldn't hopefully pose a problem. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to start with the nearest whole number. So you need to ask yourself, whole number is another way to say the ones place. Okay, so we're rounding to the ones place. So here, our first number we have 6.1. So we look at the 1, and that tells us, do we go up or do we take a rest and stay the same? So remember, there's a few sayings out there: 5 or more, raise a score; 4 or less, take a rest; or 0 to 4, hit the floor. So since the 1 actually tells that 6 to take a rest or stay the same. Now moving down, we have 8.0. Now a 0, don't have to think real hard on that one, tells the 8 to stay the same. And this last one here, we have a 0 in the ones, and we have a 0 in the tenths. So again, what number is going to be in the whole number place? It's a 0, and it's a 0 to the right of it, so that 0 tells it to take a rest, so it stays a 0. All right, erase some of my notes here, and let's get started on our next column. Now we're looking at the nearest tenth. Okay, and tenth is the first number to the right of our decimal. So I'll write it up above. I think that'll help to show the work. So we have 6.145. So the tenth is the 1. So the 4 is actually the boss. That's going to tell the 1 what to do. So remember, 0 to 4, hit the floor or stay the same. 4 or less, take a rest. So this 4 is telling the 1 to stay the same. So wrong spot. And everything to the left of that tens place needs to stay. So it's 6 and 1/10. Now let's look at the next one here. We have 8 and 98 thousandths. Here's my tenths. My hundredths is kind of the boss. And we have a 9. 5 or more, raise the score. So this 9 is telling the 0 to bump up, which will be 8.1. And finally, our last number here, we have 61 thousandths. We have a 0 in the ones. The 6 is the boss. Since it's 5 or more, raise the score. We are going to bump that to 0.1 or 1/10. And for these last ones, I'm going to write it below here in the black. We need to round to the nearest hundredth. Actually, I'm going to write it right here. So we have, there's a 4 in the hundredths place. We have a 5 to the right of it. A 5 or more, raise the score, so we need to bump that up. The 6 stays, the 1 stays, and the 4 now becomes a 5. We have a 9, and the 8 is talking to that 9. 8 tells the 9 we need to raise the score. So whenever we bump this up, this 9 actually becomes a 10, but you can't write a 10. We have to carry that 1 over, and it will become 8.1 or 8.10, or to say it mathematically, it would be 8 and 1/10. And the final one here, for this question, we have a 6, and to the right we have a 1. And remember, 0 to 4, hit the floor. So since there's a 1 to the right of this 6, it is going to remain the same. And there you go. And number 15, explain how you rounded 8 and 98 thousandths to the nearest hundredth. Well, first, again, we underline our 9 because that's in our hundredths place, and we look at our 8. The 8 tells us what to do. Since it's 5 or more, we need to raise the score, and now that's where it gets a little trickier. So what I did was, I wrote an addition problem over here to help guide us. So we need to add 1 to that 9. So if you stack it up like a traditional addition problem, it makes it a little easier to follow. So 9 plus 1 is 10. Carry the 1 over. 1 plus 0 is 1. Bring my decimal point. There's my 8. So by stacking the problem in a traditional addition setup, it makes a little bit more sense how it became 8 1/10 when we were actually rounding to the hundredths.